Lyndon B. Johnson killed John F. Kennedy by using a complicated method of scheming for assassination. The end result, John F. Kennedy shot dead, and the answer of only Oswald seemed to be naive in this Cold War era. A fundamental premise behind the LBJ theory is the fact that there was much speculation over John F. Kennedy's assertion of dropping Lyndon B. Johnson from the ballot and replacing the ex-vice president with Terry Sanford, governor of North Carolina. This seemingly spontaneous conclusion resulted from fundamental reasons. To begin with, Lyndon B. Johnson was affiliated with Bobby Baker, or Little Lyndon. Even though Bobby Baker's official income came from his political and finance career, he was a very wealthy man. Then rumors began to spread that he was involved in corrupt activities. Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy stated to investigate Baker. He discovered Baker's links to several mafia bosses. Robert Kennedy also found evidence that Johnson was also involved in political corruption, including the awarding of $7 billion contract for a fighter plane to Texas-based General Dynamics. In 1967, Bobby Baker was found guilty of 7 counts of theft, fraud, and income tax evasion. Also, he resigned as Secretary of the Senate on October 7, 1963. Even according to the former First Lady, Jackie Kennedy, he didn't like the idea that Lyndon would go on and be president because he was worried for the country. Bobby told me that he'd had some discussions with him. I forget exactly how they were planning or who they had in mind. It wasn't Bobby, but somebody. Do something to name someone else in '68. This scandal was soon to be published, and Kennedy had no interest in maintaining his political vice president, and instead looked to Terry Sanford to assume the role. This will leave little to no holes for political corruption, as Terry Sanford was a much simpler man than Lyndon B. Johnson. It has long been known that the Warren Commission, the blue panel of public officials appointed by former President Lyndon Johnson to investigate the assassination of former President John F. Kennedy, was flawed in ways that led to generations of conspiracy theories about what really happened on November 22, 1963. The Commission made many mistakes, both by intentional concealment, extensive attempts by both the CIA and FBI to withhold just how much they knew about Kennedy's assassination of Lee Harvey Oswald in the weeks and months before he killed the president. Oswald had been reaping benefits through financial means and political means by the CIA and FBI until the JFK killing. As a result of his connections to Lyndon B. Johnson, the government covered up the murder by saying it was done only by Oswald, an agreed statement by the FBI and the Warren Commission. According to a former New York Times reporter, in 1964, the Warren Commission concluded that Oswald acted alone in assassinating Kennedy, a conclusion also reached by the FBI and Dallas Police Department. It needed to cover up for Lyndon B. Johnson, not only for his connections to the FBI, but also in the fact that if the information had been released, a possible World War III would be on the verge of emerging. Not only was Oswald used to cover up the conspiracy, but so was Jack Ruby. Ruby had also been hired to ensure that no information pertaining to Lyndon B. Johnson would even have the capability to be released. Ruby even inconspicuously admits to reporters the hints at who killed John F. Kennedy. According to Jack Ruby, when I mentioned about Aldi Stevenson, if he was vice president, there would never have been an assassination of our beloved President Kennedy. Asked if he would explain it again, Ruby continued, "Well, the answer is the man in office now. That man was Lyndon Johnson." Jack Ruby, a longtime acquaintance of both Johnson and Nixon, Stone reports that they had a relationship with Ruby going back at least 16 years before Kennedy's killing. When Ruby moved from Chicago to Dallas in 1947, he was soon hired by Nixon, then serving along with Johnson in the U.S. House of Representatives. According to Roger Stone, Nixon knew Jack Ruby, hired him on House payroll in 1947 at the request of Lyndon Johnson. Jack Ruby had been used by both Richard Nixon and Lyndon B. Johnson to cover up a larger conspiracy. The final result was Lyndon B. Johnson's permanently altering instructions to host JFK's route in Dallas, Texas, to ensure the plan would follow the long-schemed conspiracy. With his immense power, Lyndon B. Johnson, former vice president, used his financial and political motives to have John F. Kennedy killed.